Um, these are just a few musings just to share with everybody out there for anybody that sees this or experiences this. Because I've had these are what I call eternal blessings, and I call them eternal blessings because they're eternal moments. They're moments because you're in eternity. You represent your experience eternal unconditional love through your heart, and then you see visually a presentation of spirit, right? Visually presenting in spirit the form that you experience her in, right? So I used to have some pretty incredible pictures in the way that's translated on a spiritual basis because spirit is an energy, right? And so I was experiencing mama, okay, in fire, okay, naturally born out of fire, okay. And now it's like the wave shape and form of fire that is presenting herself as fire, but you're looking at a goddess, a girl, a female. It's in fire form shape, right? Remember, I've mentioned this many times. I know there are a gazillion beings out there, particularly at night if you're out in the woods. I love to do it on the beach with a lot of folks that are dancing and singing on the beach, like when all the stars are out, or if you will, particularly if the moon is out on a bay. There's a really beautiful place in Laguna Beach called, well, there's two actually that are ones that are very memorable to me, but probably the most powerful one, although it varies between the experiences because we smoked and took just psychedelics, the whole range of them. Okay, I mean, this is where you're fearless. You already know what you are in energy as an eternal being, but you don't want to use your energy in ways in which, because you already know what you are in energy, you don't play games with yourselves. Okay, in other words, it's unnecessary. In other words, you have reached a state of learning speed that you already know what you are as an eternal being because you eternally serve. Okay, so you don't need to self test yourself on stuff you already know. So you're back to knowing, the knowing of what you are, your identity, your true soul, higher self. I just call it your true self. To remember the old Shakespeare, I think it was, that said it, to thine own self be true. Okay, to thine own self be true, your soul, your true identity. And then when you have spirit, because you know that you're spirit, because you love to dance to the music, because the music or the waves of that sound moves you, and you don't have to do anything; it just happens. That's the spirit of music. Okay, so you know you have spirit in you. So when your spirit is lit on fire, right, just lit, running the hottest fire that there is the hottest engine to experience. So I know how to light myself on fire, and it's actually pretty easy to do. Okay, so this is why sometimes when you think about gods and goddesses, if you will, or just spiritual beings, wherever you find spirit and energy that is presenting itself in the form in which you see the spirit and form, the energy communicating to you in a visual way, right? So I had three of those that were just putting them up as often as I could. There she is. Take a look. Right? Coming out of the fire. That's why on a couple of times I thought, well, if it gets really bad here, I'll just dive into the caldera, the liquid magma. My spirit will start dancing with her. Okay. Have you ever seen some of the old films of even within their Disney stuff, the haunted house? If you've ever been to the one in Disneyland, the haunted house. I certainly cover some experiences that I had with It's a Small World, right? And children being snatched out of there. So you have the haunted house, right? And so I know that they had it shut down for a while. I don't remember why, but at one time I did. I just forgot it because I delete and discard things on running such large libraries of stuff that's pertinent at the moment you're experiencing it, why you're experiencing it when you do. But I've always known since I was 4 years of age what it is, the hell I am. And I run a single fucking pole. Okay? So that's a staff in the ground, which means I know what I represent. That's like a messenger from God itself. Okay? When the male side is using the force, or the rod is in, now we're grounded with the girl, right? So the girl side of me, the goddess side of me, is what keeps me in check, right? Because you don't want to break an arrow, which is to break the piece or cell. Now it's going to slow down. So you don't want to have a lot of broken arrows, which are a lot of broken cells. So now all you got to do is scale it up to a planet ship, right? To a star system, a galaxy, and all the rest of it. Broken arrows, water worlds, molecules of water and fire. And so spirit in everything, spirit in all the elementals, spirits in everything. So when all those elementals are experiencing what it is you are, which is an eternal love vibration, boy, do they love to dance with that, right? And so that wakes up all the spirits. When all the spirits are awake, whoa, the one that's here. So that's the highest law there is. That's the gold standard, monatomic gold, right? Single pole gold. And so, when you know as a child that this I can certainly talk about me because I know who I am. Okay, so there's no mistake in me, right? And some will perceive this as arrogance, and that's why that's inverted. Okay, because what they don't realize is that, of course you're the most powerful. Okay. But the way in which being the most powerful as energy, which is soul consciousness, is in service mode. So when it's in service modes, you don't want to lose any fractal as a result of the way that you communicate to others, because you're running on eternal light. So now you're going to be measuring resistance in everything, wherever you are, which is the resistance or the capacity to experience more real light, living light, not finite light. There's a big difference. It's fake. It's not the real thing, because when you're experiencing true love through your heart, you know what it feels like in energy through your heart, your soul connection, right? Okay, so there's no mistaking it, unless you don't know what love is. And that's what I was saying in that one video that I did. When you have experienced what true love is, and you've experienced it and realize that's eternity, that's from which it all began, then that means that you made a correct translation. That means that you know that the highest code of honor that there is to honor what love is. Because if you don't honor what love is, it means you can never be trusted. And that's the sad truth of it. That's one of the reasons why I put up some of the movies that I do, because there are some messages in there that I've learned because of what I've learned through experience. So that's why experience is what a soul is learning as a result of that experience. That informs us of the environment that we're in, the universe that we're living in, and how we translate it. And so if you know that it began with what love is, because that's what you experience in your own heart and soul, then that's called knowing the truth. Because the ultimate truth is to know what you are. You either know what you are or you don't know what you are. So you can measure that as energy. So you know that it began with an eternal love vibration, which means the fire is never going to go out. So you know that by the experiences that you've had, the truths that you're living, and the living is the truth, and the living is the experience of the truth in energy of what you're experiencing in energy. That's why this particular island is very powerful, to have some of the most powerful energetic experiences in spirit when you're connected to her mama here on this island, right? And so as a result of that, that is the obvious reason why this particular island, 5 magnets on it, big on Hawaii, would be their stronghold. It's like having, a major router, a major hub server, right? So you realize the importance or value that this particular rock has in relationship to the planet, right? Why the equator is called the equate. Hey man, equate this equal, an equal sign, a sine wave. I've just experienced some eternal blessings. It's like I've managed to be able to experience paradise while being in a lower domain box, right? Pandora's box, like Jack in the Box. Hey, bang, hey, what's coming out of here? Some people would call it a freak show. I've used a lot of different words to describe it from an artistic point of view, a musician, or if you will, because I love nature. Nature, the numbers of what all that represents, I don't even bother with it because the number's too damn big. Besides that, when you're in experiencer mode, which is creative mode, and you're on fire to create and thus experience something new that you've never experienced before, you're on fire. So you're on fire to create. So the experience becomes what you create out of the energy that you're doing it with in your own mirror. So I already have a lot of images of knowing places that I've already experienced, but I don't think in terms of time because there is no time. That's an illusion. There's only energy in the experience, what it feels like in consciousness, if you will, whether you're a soul and a spirit or anything that is self-aware, that is aware of what it is. And now you have a way to become aware of what they are. Now you're aware of what they are. Now they're aware of what you are. But we can measure that in energy. What are they experiencing in energy? And what am I experiencing in energy? And the difference between the two, if there is a difference, will be the difference in the wave that you're experiencing by virtue of a speed ratio harmonic. And so now you're measuring, just like being a programmable fucking CB radio or Bearcat, turn it in. So I used to have, and these aren't coincidences why you come across pieces of information. If you weren't supposed to know it, you wouldn't know it because your consciousness on your journey would not be informing you of that. So when you realize you have a relationship obviously with servers, big networks, right? Language of DNA and putting all that into perspective. But everything for me is spirit stuff, okay? Which means spiritual communication. Spirits love to be with other spirits. They know your energy because spirit is in all the energies. So the spirit knows the spirit. That's why down here one night when I almost zipped out of here, right? And I was experiencing a lot of rage that I had to dump because I'd been dumping an enormous amount of experiences. That's just astronomical numbers when you're a polarity integrator. But it's always measured in density as to the amount of capacitance that you're experiencing, which is pure light, which means wherever you go, which means experiencing the purest of light inside this planet chip on every level. Because anything that isn't pure, eternal, unconditional love, you will know it if you're in a place in which it isn't being experienced. Because now you're experiencing what they're experiencing. That's not what eternal love is. That makes it easy as a little kid when I was growing up to have what is really a high-speed antenna. Because you're measuring so much from the center point from which it all began as a monopole, right? Because you totally surrendered yourself to serve, and because you realize that's probably the most intelligent decision you ever made as a soul. Okay, so I understand because I've experienced it how difficult it is to burn off things that went dark, right? And that becomes an altered part of you that you experience as a result of the trauma, either trauma that you've done to others or trauma that's been done to you. Now we're into how we all get along with one another throughout all of the star systems, all the galaxies, and everything that is. Right? Because that's a measurement of how we relate to one another in communication, what we're experiencing, what we are, and the method or the energy that we use to communicate with. So love makes it simple. And love is music. So they're experiencing your waves and the music that you love to be with, right? So now we're back to spirits that love to be with spirits because spirit is the energy. So I can assure you from experience that spirits, no matter how big or how small they are, when they realize how much love you have in your heart, because they can experience the depth of how much energy is actually represented by your soul or your oversoul, how deeply you feel about everything that's alive and living in the all creation. Okay, so this is like when you talk about empathy, imagine a super empath. Nathan calls me a super empath, but that's because I told him it's like being a super empath, which is super sensitive. So you're sensitive on a level that throughout my experience in my life here, I haven't met a lot of people that have ever talked about that, gone into the deep, intimate side into your heart. That's what I try to do to heal a girl, to get to raise the higher octave of the goddess side, right? So now that she's experiencing that, wherever she's at, she remembers how to do that, and a lot comes back to her in memories, if you will, that allows her to maintain that energy. Because now, once you've been restored and you're experiencing love again, it's like being back home again. So once you've been through a spiritual battlefield and you still are now experiencing that, which is restoration of your spirit, which is your energy, that soul connection you have with your spirits, it's like being reunited, okay? From being in a battlefield in which all this tech is being thrown at you to separate the two, fall the spirit, consume the spirit. So this is for all the marbles. See, if it's after your soul, then you know, since that's all you are, right? You're not somebody else. That means that your soul, your spirit is going to do everything to protect the soul from which you came into creation, right? The real stuff, the real McCoy, experiencing what love, experiencing the one. A monopole, anywhere you go, experience a monopole. Wow, this energy is unbelievable. Look what this realm is like. Wow. And so now you can begin to imagine the most incredible, I call this beyond your imagination. And it's beyond because there's always something more beautiful from which that came to create something more beautiful. But the beauty is actually in the diversification of the difference, which means you love artists. Just on fire to be with other artists. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I loved. I spent so much time in the Hollywood stuff. It's like studying the film. You're studying the art of communication, because that's what it is. Terrence McKenna knows that. That's why I love Terrence McKenna. There was a lot of stuff that he published because I could relate to him, resonate with him, because he's learning and he's realizing the value, because that's how ever since I was a child, you're measuring values. Like you're a built-in scientist, if you will. So you have a built-in measuring stick built in. It's like your radio set of who you are as a soul, led by spirit. You're running a radio set. So you're running an antenna. So now you're into all the frequencies. Now you get back into the 12 and 12, 144. It's all the strands that exist that represent frequencies upon which become all the infinite possibilities from which you can experience whatever you choose to experience by virtue of being able to do that by the energy that you are that makes that happen. So this is why when I was over on the other side of the island a couple of years ago, because you're an artist. Okay, so I began just like she did when she came up out of when Kilauea had gone off the second time, the first time. Well, let's put it this way: it was always running live, what I call a live shot, lava tubes. If you ever been up to Crater Lake, boy, go through the lava tubes going from Crater Lake and that whole bed of magma, lava that's cooled in Medford, and that gets into why I was there in 77. Ever see the movie called Dominoes? Go see if you can put that one together with the deep underground military base tied to the underground networks through the Siskiyou Mountains there from, say, Gold Beach. So you realize this is like networks and hiding and doing things. They're not going to do things out in the open and let everything that they're doing to try and control what it is you experience through all their architecture, technology, and artificial intelligence, because they're controller types. That's the nature of that energy, which is represented by the consciousness. Okay, and control is born out of fear. Okay, what it can't love, because love is the absence of all fear. That's why it's easy to totally surrender to fire, which is really what it is. You've surrendered to the hottest there is. So now that's cold fusion, hot fission. That's when the male and the female join to become one. That's fearless. Okay. So no matter what happens to this, you don't lose what it is that you are as an oversoul, as a monopole. That's like being joined wherever the light is. We are in living spirit. So that's why we don't need technology to travel. You're the one. You're with the one. So when you're mated with a goddess, okay, it makes it simple. So just as she was able to see herself in her mirror, if you will, right? Because we're mirrors, flaming like that, right? Then imagine you can become in another form. It's much like I experienced here on this island, and I described it a couple of years ago. The same energy is flowing through me as the same energy is flowing through her, which is what love is. It goes on forever, gifting. That's a lot of flame. That's a lot of fire. That's a lot of light. So that's why that particular night, before I zipped out of here, they came. I could feel their presence. Okay, in spirit. Okay, not a physical form, in spirit form. I could experience how powerful the energy in spirit came to visit me. So I realized my big brothers and sisters are here. I put my right hand up. I said, my big brothers and sisters here. So they honor me and I honor them. So we know who we are in energy. And so it's measured by how much love you have in your heart. So I've had the great eternal blessing of being able to know, because I feel it, that it's like having a bottomless pit. Okay. In other words, there is no depth to it. The energy, the amount of love that I feel through my heart is you can't measure it. What happens is you live it the way that you know it. Which simply means that you know what eternity is because you experience it in your own heart, and to be able to try and volumate or using words in the English language to try and describe how much energy is represented by that is impossible. It's way too much energy. So therefore, the way that energy can be described using this doesn't work. It's impossible. That is like another way to describe being inverted, simply because of the fact that you can imagine how much energy that is on fire to create and thus manifest and form what it now experiences in its mirror, like she was doing. So now imagine, because I have with me, that I decide that I want to change what it is that I am. In other words, and I've done this over on the other side of the island, where what you see in the mirror, because I'm about 5'7" now, because I used to be 6 foot, I ended up losing an awful lot bone density loss as a result of a drug I was on for pain, which is another crime, right? Because of all the stuff that all the boxes that got listed, okay, of what was done here and why they did what they did. And so I didn't want to go off in that direction, because that's all my videos, at least from what I experienced, whatever information I could get in there that seemed important at the time to share at the moment that I share it, because that's important. It's the moment that you share it on a motherboard, what you're sharing, and the way that a communication system works. What's his name? Terrence McKenna, Rupert Sheldrake, and Ralph Aberson did a good job on that. They tried to put all the math and all the art and all the history and everything together to make some damn sense out of it. And so I think if you listen to Octellius and Terrence McKenna, it's a buffoonery system. I love that word that he came up with. But, you can let her arrange all this stuff. You go from buffoons to baboons, and this is why the English language is just, it can mean different things to different people. So that's why I was playing with this language like crazy when I was growing up as a child. And then now all of a sudden you got to tell somebody, because they don't understand what that means. I just made it up. And so now it's got a new translation. This is what it means symbolically. That's the artist in you that's doing that. Naturally, because you don't like to take something that's already been, now you've experienced it in the past, right? And you photographed it. Let's do something different than what that is. And that applies to everything, actually. because you can already translate the difference between the way that nature works, naturally flows, and the way that things don't. That's why when I was a child, I went and ran right in to be with her naturally. Form follows function. The form in which it follows, but it's not in the way in which follows. It's like telling that girl when I was in that. It was basically a ranch bar place that sits at the bottom of the Angeles National Forest, San Gabriel Canyon on the San Gabriel River, and I used to go up in there. And there was a place where they would have, particularly in the summertime, but also in the wintertime, usually a live band there or jukebox. Sometimes bands would come in there, but a jukebox and a bar, and it had a grill. So it was a popular place to go there. So I used to go there on nights, usually on Friday when they had a band, because obviously a drummer and a spirit loved to dance. So it's one of the ways in which you can actually measure from a spiritual science point of view, because I was doing it, because the experience is the informer. From a spiritual point of view, when you are spirit that is in the light, which is what love is, it goes on forever with your soul. So down here in Hilo, in different times of the year, they'll have like a big concert thing, several bands that will play, right? So I can remember, for example, when I was on the corner of it's right down there where what's known as Hilo Bay. So if you look it up on a map, it would be an intersection, a tetrahedron of a place called the Hilo Bay Hostel. Okay, and that was, and naturally there's going to be stories in a place like that, right? But what I noticed over time is experiencing more casualties is really what it boils down to. I was in a bunk with a guy that was just, it was extremely painful. It's another casualty. But anyway, so that four-way intersection that's there, and there's a sort of a place where people would congregate, usually every Thursday, and play music at night, right? So I would mosey on down there, and so you notice that there's a large area where, in other words, a space where girls and guys, or guys and guys, and girls, because you realize how this is all playing out, right, on the stage. And so the music would have a nice beat to it, right? Because I'm a drummer. Actually all instruments. But, I love to dance to the beat of a drum because I love to play drums, because the way that the arrangement is set up to make sounds of all the instruments that I how do I put this? Strove to would naturally be drums for me, for my spirit. And the reason is I like to keep everything busy, making music, using every toe, both feet, all my fingers, my head, everything. In other words, everything, all the lines are flowing. Because for me, when I start with the drums, I can run a bass beat right on my right foot and keep another one going. So that's keeping two bass drums going at once. But they're, in harmony with each other, right? Now you add on another piece. Now you use your right hand, and then you can add another piece to your left. So now you can start adding toms if that's the way you want to build a drum set. But I love Zulu drums running on one drum, a bongo two, run on three. You can do different combinations, and that's the whole idea. As a musician, I'm a percussionist. I know those that are musicians out there knows what a percussionist is. Like, what's his name? Stuart Copeland. Stuart Copeland, I love the way that he drummed. He used a lot of tick-tock. What we used to use as children when cutting a coconut shell in half and then making the clap, like making the sound. Now we're into sound effects. Now we're into Hollywood, right? Okay, because I already know I'm a film director. I'm directing my own film. Okay? That's why Stanley Kubrick was a genius. Even all the directors that were working for the military, the corporate stuff, right, acknowledged this guy was a genius. And that's because he had very high situational awareness to make sure that his message as an artist was heard, that message was there. That means he had a higher state of awareness to realize, because he was exposing the Pentagon and all these folks, the controller types, which is all naturally done through military. Because you can have You know, you can wear a $1,500 suit, right? But you're still a gangster. So it doesn't matter whether you're wearing a suit. Matter of fact, you'd be butt ass naked on a beach somewhere, right? Or be wearing a military uniform that's got all the rank and insignia on it, which is symbolism, but this is what I am. I'm a warrior, but I use my energy against others rather than using my energy in which to serve. That's knowing one from the other. So, you know, growing up as a kid on this planet, you're on a spiritual battlefield because they're using this planet to make war machines. So, obviously, that's technology transfer. And the way that this is obviously translated is why you realize, as I realized as a child, there are places they can't get into. So now you understand why they have to reverse engineer things, because they don't know, okay, one, who created it if they just came across it, right? But now they got to figure out how it works. So you understand, if you're higher on the food chain, you don't want something lower on the food chain to know how it works, because you already know that they're going to use it against you. So now you begin to realize that what I've got a fear-based being in my universe that now means I have to produce something at a higher rate of speed in order to make sure that I protect what it is that I am, which goes on forever, as a result of something that doesn't. Okay? Put that in your hopper. That's what I call a vortex or a blender. Blend that. Because that's exactly what it is. Now you're back to knowing one from the other. So you know one is finite because it eventually is going to run out of energy and burn off by virtue of not being faster than the one. So they know when the one is present and everyone is honoring what the one is, that's game over. Because that amount of energy, which is, if you will, as an organizational structure of energy that represents forever, which is eternity, and you throw in all the spirits that represent what love is that are in that light, there isn't anything more powerful than that. Because one, we're talking about eternal energy. So when you have that much fire that has come together, because we are aware of ourselves, because we communicate with each other through spirit, which is what the light is. So it's a light communication. So I'm a light communicator, a love communicator. So I'm just a messenger. It's the message in the communication, which is what love is, which is what the light is, which for me is eternal fire, which means that light is always on, okay? Which means in any place in which I'm on a spiritual battlefield, because it doesn't have anything to do with arrogance. What it has to do with is recovery, which means my light is always on. But the way that it's perceived through their type of hierarchy, okay, is I'm better than you because I have more than you. That's inverted, okay? I don't have a lot, and that's okay to not have a lot, because I don't need a lot in order to experience what love is through my heart and be happy and joyful. That I have that gift. So that gift is shared with others. And that by example means you're a teacher by example, a learner and student by example, because now they're going to recognize you're running higher energy than they are. How did you manage to be able to do that in an environment in which you have all these beings with all their tech are trying to kill you? Okay? So I knew this at 4 years of age, so I must have been around for a while, because I knew at 4 years of age to stay in your heart and soul and do everything that you can to be in service mode. And when you're always in service mode, what do you think you're doing? You're increasing, as Yellow Rose put it, spiritual fat. Okay? Because you want to be burning hot in a place in which, you know, they're trying to crack your shield, is really what it is, trying to crack your shield so the other shit can get in there and then feed on all the energies that you're capable of, because when you're a monopole, it's all the energies, all the frequencies, all the power, right? So now when you get into all the reproductive stuff, sexual energy, the power of magnets and attraction, and how that works with all the elements from phosphorus, which is obviously the seed side, because, you know, I just tell the truth of how it works, physics and math and physics. Okay, so I know how to light myself on fire when the shit hits a fan and you want to take your heads off. Said, I'm done with these folks. Okay, they don't know what they're doing. That's why Tanis was absolutely right. When I hear certain people say it bluntly as they can bluntly say it, I'll be right there to back them up with my single pole. That's right. These are universe killers. Okay, make no mistake about it. The amount of check boxes of how dangerous these people actually are and what they actually represent by virtue of the technology that they've allowed to get their hands on. And now they're going to use that against all creation. Pat, I got that finally through into Patty. Because she echoed it. Not that she didn't already know it, but when she chooses to say something the time of this, she's doing it. Patty's not the type of girl that's going to repeat herself in the exact same words in which she's doing it at the exact moment in which she did it. It has to have some context and meaning when you communicate why specific words are enunciated by what they're experiencing and energy they want to communicate. So she had mentioned that because of something that she said to me because of about a war against the founder races. And she said it isn't. And I'm saying you're wrong, Patty Broussard. I'm the one, okay? I'm a monopole. So I know what the truth is. This is a war against me because I've experienced it, which is what love is. It goes on forever. So that means this is a war against all creation. It means this is a war against that which love creates. That's straightforward. When I knew that at 4 years of age, that means it's for all the marbles. Okay? End of story. So I don't deviate from that. I never have from day one, which is the end of day one. So I didn't at 4 years of age, and I'm not now because age isn't what's important to me. What love is the most important thing to me, and how much everybody's experiencing it, because everyone has the errant right. As Rose would say, heirs, like an heirloom seed. Okay, so when you think of going back in time, when you perceive your universe through time and not energy, then you got to know that it began with the hottest furnace, which is on fire to create. And when you realize that's what love is, because love doesn't want to experience any loss of what it is, this is a result of what it's creating or what it experiences that it does to what it did create. Okay, so you're not going to hurt something that you created, otherwise you're hurting yourself when you're a grand creator. Okay? So when you're mated, okay, which means you've chosen to become one for eternity, which means you're always in service mode. So that's why on my journey, I did things that most people, based on the movies that are running that everybody's experiencing because of all the programming, okay, like people that hire all these other people that they're willing to pay them because they have all the money in which to do it, to have somebody clean your toilet for yourself, cook for you, do everything, which means you don't have to do anything, right? And so, in other words, what was the word in English they used to say for that? You got a silver spoon in your mouth. And so, in other words, if I was to ask Queen Elizabeth, would you be willing to come down and live in a homeless shelter with people that are infected with the virus and be there and working out in a soup kitchen out during the day, and that would be part of your job? Would you be willing to do that for 30 days? Okay, so this doesn't have anything to do with I'm better than you. What I'm talking about here is what you feel in your own heart. If you knew that there were people that were suffering, okay, then this becomes a measurement, and I know it because it's how I've always measured me, which is how deeply do I still love who I am? That's the measurement. Because how much love you have in yourself, in your own soul matrix, is going to be demonstrated by how much love you're showing towards others in the same universe that is represented by your mirror. Okay? You have to remember, and this is important, actually, you don't have to do anything, how inverted consciousness presents itself to us. And because it comes at us that's all your mass media. Okay? That's inverted programming. That's all reversal current programming. That's all designed to harvest your fucking energy. That's called living in the past, which means you're chasing time, which means you're chasing zero, which means you're chasing electrons. Anytime you're chasing electrons, you got a parasitic infection. That's the fucking truth of it. Okay? Unless you've been restored back to the one. And we all know that. That's why this is a cosmic level cleansing. I do know that. Absolutely. To make it so that, because I've experienced this in my own mind's energy, my soul conscious energy, is a place in which nobody has any memory of any war having ever existed, ever. Which means everyone that is alive and living in that universe or multiverse is experiencing what eternal love is. Which means there isn't anybody alive and living in that multiverse, because it's accelerating at that rate of speed with that much fire in which to experience that, because that's what the law is anyway. So the law is naturally going to take care of itself, which means that more of what it becomes aware of, experiencing eternal love. And once you've experienced that, now you're able to experience anything that's less from that. Now you know the difference between the two, and as more beings accelerate to become what that is, then that is the highest accelerator in which a universe can change into something that isn't what it was before. And now it's experiencing what love is everywhere that it goes, because everyone that is conscious and aware of itself is experiencing what that is through a soul and a spirit. They're experiencing what love is wherever they go, because that's what the law is. And I stand on that as a single pole, because that's what the truth is. Because you can always do that. You can always be, when you are one, you can always create your own universe. Because you're with the one. So now you can create another universe that is now experiencing what you are, which is eternal unconditional love. Now from whence that came, everything that's coming out of what you are is what that is experiencing what you are, which is what love is that goes on forever. So that means nobody down the line is going to be experiencing anything less than what that is, because everything that's coming after that is experiencing what that is. In spirit, which is that much energy, with souls that are experiencing the purest of light, which is the purest of love, because everyone has the inherent right to be able to experience just how purely we are all loved. Because that's what I experience in me, that I share with others, because it's a gift that just flows right through you. So that's the pay it forward principle. Pay it forward, right? Give it all away. Give it all away. Right? So now you get into responsibility part as a child, because I experienced this. There was a time in which, when you think of, what is it, the theory of relativity, what's relative to one may not be relative to the other. Are we talking about a relative in DNA or a relative of a species? What are we talking about here? Energetic harmony in the waves would be certainly one way to describe it, but I suppose before this phone, this AI decides to, that's all the memory you got, busted boy. So what ends up happening is that everything that you're experiencing is what love is, no matter where that you go. So you realize the expansion of that canvas, if you will, that allows you to be able to experience what that is. You don't have a memory anymore of war, because it doesn't exist anymore. So more and more beings begin to become aware they're not aware of any war anymore, and that they're experiencing through their own creative mind. Okay, so we're talking about more creator beings, which means an expansion or acceleration of more musicians and artists that are coming together, that have caught the music train. Wow, I love music, dance, spirit. That's what Terence referred to an archaic revival, which is a revival in spirit, which is the revival in the music that is we're all playing with each other. So at the end of the day, it's always going to be about music, right? So now you begin to realize the difference between nature's music. When you walk through a forest, you're experiencing the music of what's in nature, in spirit form. And then you have the stuff that is deconstructed from that. Now you make other sound instruments out of that using artificial intelligence in which to do it. It's not the same. It's inverted. That all you have to do is look at how they were doing that. Not that these guys are not can't play sound instruments the way that they like to, but all you have to do is how many were tuned to 432 like Hendrix was. Right. So like for example, I'm a drummer. So I had a little drum set when I was a child growing up. And then you have guys like Neil Peart or Stuart Copeland, all the guys that go way back to what's his name, not Jimmy Doolittle, the Glenn Miller Band, all those guys, Gene Krupa, those folks. And so because I'm a percussionist, you always want to add on more, keep adding on more, keep adding on more, keep adding on more, like you want to play all the instruments. Well, imagine all the sound instruments that are possible to, produce a frequency and a vibration, right? And it's just like it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So you realize why, you represent all the instruments because that's the universe of creation that is playing all that music that's taking place that we're all on board with. So you're naturally able to tune into all the different sounds. So I love violins, clarinets, bass drums. Keyboards are one of my favorites. I love keyboards because my fingers love to go fast to produce all kinds of different frequencies, just like you see in that movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, sound, music, right? And that's powerful stuff because sound is communication, right? So when you're experiencing an eternal love vibration, that's music. So they know, and because ships that are above us, they know. Just like that experience I had at the Target store over in Sparks, Nevada, when I realized that the light had risen significantly throughout the Milky Way galaxy. So I felt that. I felt it. It's something you feel. Your soul knows. Got the light communication because you're experiencing an expansion of it within your own soul matrix, right? And so I can experience that. And so later on that day, I went to Target off a bus. Took a bus to go to the Target store to get some things. I got a telepathic communication. Look up. Psh, there was a big ship. Right. And so, yeah, and that's how it works. So they can read your music. They can read your music. They know who you are. It's an energy identity. It's because you're an antenna. Right. So I guess that's it. 47 minutes, 24 seconds. Tick, 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 tick. Have a great day.